When it comes to gaming and entertainment, nothing beats investing in a solid GPU. Regardless of whether you're looking for the budget GPU, or just want to have the best GPU that money can buy, you came to the right place. If you're interested in finding out which GPU is best for you, stay tuned. Before getting started, I'd like to say that this list is based on my personal opinion, research and the test experiences of the actual owners. So, without further ado, let's get started with the list.
"4K, Ultra HD, 2160p, whatever you want to call it, has been a golden dream for PC gamers all around the world. But the struggle was real. It was so demanding that users needed to use two cards in SLI Crossfire-supported games, or else drop the settings to the point it looked better in lower resolutions. Well, not anymore. GTX 1080Ti is the first consumer-grade GPU that's able to provide 4K at 60 FPS on full settings in most games, beating its predecessor Titan X, and sitting as the sole king of the graphics card market until AMD Vega shows up to the battle. This Gigabyte card runs at 1657 MHz boost clock on the OC mode, so that's 75 MHz on top of the reference model. To sustain these clocks, the card comes equipped with the now classic Windforce 3X cooler, which has been proven as very efficient for the last few years. That is, 380mm fans which spin in different directions to maximize airflow, on top of a good, yet thin heatsink with 5 copper heat pipes in direct contact with the GPU. These fans, as with almost every graphics card today, won't turn on until the chip reaches 60°C, and even when they are turned on they are hardly audible above case fans. Equipped with the latest Windforce Stack 3X cooler, this should be one of the coolest cards on the market, both literally and figuratively. That big cooling solution does make the card quite thick, but also allows for some respectable factory overclocks, giving you more bang for your buck. If you're after a graphics card that pushes out 1080p, 120 FPS and above, or you've got a high-resolution gaming display at 165 Hz, then the ASUS GTX 1080Ti 11G is something you should be looking at. For those with a 21:9 aspect display and native 3440 by 1440 resolution, in our testing, this GPU handled 8100 FPS without a problem, which is perfect for the 100Hz ultra-wide gaming monitors on the market. For games like CS:GO, Overwatch, Rocket League, and others, frames are king, so you need 120-165 FPS for the high refresh rate panels. If you're gaming on a high-resolution monitor, then you're going to be enjoying your native refresh of 100Hz easily, with 8100 FPS on ultra details on the ASUS GTX 1080. With a 6GB GeForce GTX 1060 SC Gaming, EVGA added a model that roughly follows NVIDIA's reference design, but uses a cooler that eliminates the Founders Edition's overhangs. This gives us a much shorter card, seemingly ideal for HTPCs. If you look at his specs, EVGA's GeForce GTX 1060 Gaming seems very similar to a standard GeForce GTX 1060. But EVGA outfitted the card with a custom cooler that shrinks the total package down to only 6.8 long and 4.4 high. The EVGA GeForce GTX has similar clocks to NVIDIA's Founders Edition cards, 1506 MHz and 1708 MHz base and boost clocks, respectively, with an effective memory speed of 8008 MHz. Where EVGA's card differs is in its cooler and PCB setup. The EVGA GeForce GTX 1060 Gaming has a small form factor, similar to something like the Radeon R9 Nano. In total, the card is only 6.8 long, and it is quite power-friendly too. This card requires only a single 6-pin supplemental power feed. The cooler features a small, but dense array of heatsink fins, along with a double ball bearing fan sitting on top. For all intents and purposes, The EVGA GeForce GTX 1060 Gaming performs just like an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 Founders Edition. The cards have similar GPU and memory clocks, and performs within a percentage point or two across the board. Any differences in performance can be attributed to slightly different average boost clocks that result from the different coolers on the cards, or the margin of error in a particular benchmark. In terms of competing offerings, the EVGA raised blows with the Radeon RX 480, though it occasionally nipped at the more expensive Radeon R9 nanoseals. The reasonably priced EVGA GeForce GTX 1060 Gaming uses NVIDIA's reference PCB as a template. As such, it features a compact cooler, and works well in small form-factor machines thanks to diminutive dimensions. Despite its size, the GeForce GTX 1060 SC Gaming is surprisingly quiet. It also offers competitive performance, though the MOSFETs and memory suffer from insufficient cooling. Fortunately, you're able to ameliorate this shortcoming if you'd like, since EVGA explicitly permits the removal of its thermal solution without risking your warranty. The GTX 1060 is based on the same Pascal architecture as the GTX 1080 and GTX 1070, but utilizes a newer GP106 GPU on the same 16nm FinFET process. All the Pascal features are also in this card with the GTX 1060, utilizing 1280 CUDA cores, running with a base clock of 1506 MHz, and can boost up to 1708 MHz. Memory runs at 8 GHz, and is wired to a 192-bit bus with a total of 6 GB. A 3 GB variant is also available, but that is a different spec sheet altogether. The GTX 1060 6 GB requires a single 6-pin power connector, and has no SLI support. ASUS also deploys the same look on its dual-series graphics cards as some of its motherboards. But even though the GTX 1060 Dual 3G is a mid-range card, it still packs a punch in the design and quality departments. The ASUS GeForce GTX 1060 Dual 3G features patented wing blade fans, with over 100% more air pressure over the heatsink, and 3 times more quiet than reference cards like the GTX 1060 Founders Edition from NVIDIA. The GTX 1060 is a mid-range card, and offers the performance that NVIDIA thinks sits well within the current mainstream market. It delivers very decent 1080p performance, and if you could settle for lower graphic details, it looks like it can do 1440p easily, as well in some lighter games. The GTX 1060 does lack the ability to scale its performance, having no support for SLI. ASUS takes pride in its quality, and even their supposed mainstream products emanate the company's high standard in quality. The ASUS GTX 1060 Dual is a solid card, and while it doesn't have the heft of a real performance model, its performance together with its design offsets the need for that, as ASUS still provides the same level of quality in the Dual's components. Overall, the ASUS GTX 1060 Dual is the more economical choice if you're pursuing a GTX 1060 from ASUS, and offers all the quality you'd expect from the company when it comes to build, cooling, and PCB quality. Not to mention that it's got a white shroud, which goes really well with the budding trend in black and white theme builds. Performance is good, and the premium that ASUS imposes on its graphics cards are well worth the money when it comes to peace of mind and durability. Gigabyte's Radeon Rx Vega 56 Gaming OCHG began its life as an AOS-branded stunner, but had to be pared back in the face of supply issues from AMD. What remains is still a very fast gaming board, albeit with a more budget-oriented cooler. Unfortunately, limited availability means there aren't many to go around. There's not a huge difference between the GPUs at the heart of the top-end RX Vega 64 and this lower-caste RX Vega 56. As the name suggests, the second-tier card has 56 compute units, compared with the 64 CU count of the higher-spec card. That means, AMD have jammed 3,584 GCN cores into the RX Vega 56, instead of the previous card's 4096 GCN cores. Other than that, it's purely a case of some tweaked power settings and lower clock speeds. Everything else is identical, down to the cooling design. That means, we're still talking about 8 GB of HBM2 video memory, and a 2048-bit bus. It's the same configuration that makes the Vega 10 GPU a 486 square millimeters giant, with close to 13 billion transistors inside it. The overall design of the Vega architecture seems to have been about laying a marker in the sand, defining a branching point for future generations of their GPU technology. They've almost sacrificed legacy gaming performance for the promise of future applications of its feature set. The little extras the Vega architecture has baked into this GPU look like they could be genuinely game-changing. But only if developers actually end up taking advantage of them. And that's a pretty big if. If you're looking for an alternative to the GTX 1070, the bottom line is that you're generally getting around 10 to 12% of additional performance with the Vega 56, at the cost of some efficiency. Assuming the recommended US pricing holds up, and also the cryptocurrency miners don't jack up the costs horrendously, the value on offer here is very good overall, especially if you own, or are considering to buy a 1440p or 4K FreeSync display, which pairs nicely with this product, and constitutes one of the most profound gaming upgrades money can buy. Zotac's AMP Extreme is the biggest GeForce GTX 1080T GPU in size that we've ever tested. Its dimensions measure 12.8 by 5.83 by 2.23 inches. This makes it a 2.5 slot card, so you'll definitely want to make sure that you have enough clearance in your rig before you purchase it. Zotac's AMP Extreme card comes equipped with 3 90mm fans. What makes them unique is that they won't actually spin until the GPU hits around 60 degrees Celsius. Zotac's card offers the most aggressive out-of-the-box frequency, with a boost clock that tops out at 1759 MHz. This makes it 177 MHz faster than NVIDIA's reference GTX 1080Ti. The AMP Extreme also features an aggressive VRAM overclock, with its 11.2 gigabits per second rate. In terms of aesthetics, the card comes in the gunmetal gray. It's got some sharp-looking edges, but looks pretty clean overall. Zotac's card offers RGB lighting. With its Spectra software, you can tweak 3 lighting zones on the board to cycle colors, breathe, and more. Unlike NVIDIA's reference board, which requires a 6-pin and an 8-pin power connector, Zotac's card requires 2 8-pin power connectors. In terms of ports, it offers 3 DisplayPort 1.4 and a HDMI 2.0. The card is reasonably priced as well, slightly more expensive than NVIDIA's reference SKU though. Zotac's GeForce GTX 1080Ti AMP Extreme is the fastest GeForce GTX 1080Ti we've ever tested, which makes it the fastest graphics card we've ever reviewed. While it is certainly a 4K capable card, you'll still most likely want to lower some graphical settings if you want to reach a consistent 60 FPS in more graphically demanding games. If you're in the market for a great bang for the buck 4K solution, we recommend NVIDIA's Founders Edition graphics card. If you're looking for the most badass gaming GPU in town, we recommend Zotac's AMP Extreme solution. Just make sure it fits into your case.